I broke the ice on Kriegel. I have one hot take. I was like, oh, should I?
Everybody ready? Okay. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the innovation stage, and we're going to kick off with our very first panel, Smarter Streets, Data-Driven Operations for Safer, More Efficient Cities, sponsored by Passport. And I would like to welcome our moderator, Michelle Simmons.
Thank you so much. Good morning. Thank you guys for being here. I know you guys could have been over there and probably were over there, but you're here now, and we really appreciate it. Again, I'm Michelle Simmons. I'm going to be serving on this powerhouse panel. I just want to prepare you guys. We got some hot wires up here. They probably don't even know they are, but this is going to be a phenomenal session about how data is helping us operate more safely within our city. So I'm going to start with the introductions, and they've asked me to go in order. And so I'm going to start with Adam. Adam Kriegel is the VP of Business Development and Partnerships for Passport. You guys are going to learn more about Passport. I thought I knew, and then we had a little conversation, and I realized I didn't know. So once you hear about it, you'll recognize that you understand what he represents. Adam is this guy that's all into this really heavy technology and innovation. He serves on the International Parking and Mobility Institute's Technology and Innovation Committee. What else do we know about? Oh my, listen. You're partnering with Miami-Dade County right now, correct? City of Miami?
I don't know where you're getting this from.
Okay. So you don't have any work with Miami-Dade County right now? Not yet.
Tremendous amount of work in the state of Florida.
Okay, Florida. Well, I'm going to let you tell it because somebody told it to me wrong, and you're here to clarify. So we're going to hear more from Adam in just a bit. Frank Mertz and I, we had an opportunity to talk this morning. He was on a panel with me. Frank Mertz is the city manager for the beautiful city of Altamont Springs in Florida, and he is doing so much in innovation with STEM, with transportation. He is really doing a lot of great things, so we're going to talk about that. And the last person we have is Kevin Pomplin, who is the CEO of Lens, and he's going to tell you more about that. There's some safety things that I think some of us don't recognize, some safety statistics. He's going to help us. He does something very unique as it relates to helping other drivers and other navigators of the roads understand where there might be infractions or safety issues. So we're going to talk about that. You are Southern California native. Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And where are you in Southern California right now?
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. And I remember you saying, Adam, you're from the Bronx. Queens. Oh, dang. Yeah, I love Biggie, so I think that's where I got the Bronx from. Okay, guys, let's get started while I'm up here having way too much fun. So we're going to start with the curb. The curb. So there are a variety of vehicles, people that we run into on the curb. Delivery vans, we've got micromobility, we've got shared use drivers, we've got trolleys like we heard about this morning. Adam, Passport is right in the middle of this. So from where you're sitting, how bad has the curb situation actually gotten? And what does it look like in the future for us?
Oh man, when you put it like that, I don't think the curb situation has got that bad.
Okay.
But Passport's role, we connect the world of curb rights to curb compliance. So the mixed use curb, all the things that are happening at the curb, pickup, drop off, loading, unloading, EV charging, and of course parking, or as New York City likes to call it, vehicle storage. So the key really is just controlling that data in real time.
Okay.
So we work with 800 and something cities. Unfortunately, Miami is not one of those.
Miami is not one of them? But you're going to tell me it's somewhere in Florida. Okay.
But
okay.
yeah, no, Sarasota,
Okay.
St. Pete, Tampa, all over Florida.
Okay.
But 800 and something cities, and they're all facing the same challenges at the curb. They're looking to drive safety, they're looking to drive efficiency, and they're looking to drive revenue. So compliance is the core to all of that. And all of these things that are touching our curb, whether it's Uber or Lyft, or buses or cyclists, they need clear lanes to operate through.
Okay.
And anytime there's a vehicle blocking that lane, and Kevin and I were talking before, kind of the world of transit and transportation and the world of curb management, colliding. So
Okay.
to get weird, right? Like in my home city of New York, they're busy building bike lanes, telling us how many bike lanes we need. But if you look at the bike lane, there's mostly gig economy delivery drivers using the bike lane. So I think, well, what comes next in that bike lane? And it's probably going to be robots. So that's my call. My hot take for the day is that the next wave of evolution is going to be dedicated robotic lanes. Because these cute little robots that are on the street now, onesies and twosies, once there's fleets of them and all of our Amazon packages are coming from robots, that same safety and efficiency conversation comes to what are we using these dedicated lanes for.
Okay. So, Adam, tell everybody a little bit more about Passport, because we didn't get to go a little deeply in that. Tell us more about Passport.
So yeah, that high level of curb rights to curb compliance. Do you have the right to use this curb? Are you allowed to be here at this place at this time, and for how long? And limiting those rights is how we keep those lanes free and clear and safe. So the solutions that Passport offers run that spectrum. And I think permits is one of the most interesting because it sits in the middle, and it's a debate that has kind of taken over. So parking permits, residential permits, whatever permit you may have, there are many cities that think that's a parking right, a curb right. It gives you the right to be there. Other cities see it as an enforcement mechanism and something that says, do not enforce me even though I have not obtained a parking right. So the city of Boston went to bid last year, and they included permits in their enforcement bid, which we found incredibly interesting. And this shift in the paradigm for all these different solutions. So anything that's touching the curb is coming through our system.
Okay. And that would be like here in downtown Miami, we see a lot of deliveries to restaurants and a lot of deliveries in the way of the buses and the trolleys and the different things. So enforcement like that?
Yeah, do they have the right to be there,
Okay,
and for how
gotcha,
long?
gotcha,
And,
okay.
and many times that right is tied to their license plate,
Okay.
right? So whether they've paid at a meter, made a reservation, purchased a permit, or used an app to pay for parking, that license plate is telling our system in real time. So in that same Boston project, we had 7 partners. So my role at Passport is working with partners, and we have 50-something partnerships that I manage. In that Boston project, 7 of those partners were included in our RFP reply. Of those 7 partners, 5 of them were data inputs, cameras, sensors, and data feeds that are being fed into our system. So we're here to talk about data, and of course, all those cameras and sensors are providing data, but every transaction also provides data. Every time someone pays for a right, and anytime someone is given a citation for not following the rules.
Frank, in Altamont Springs, it's a smaller city. Do you have curb issues, and how do you address those in that city?
Well, so yes, everybody does. If you have a public street, you have a curb issue. We have converted alleyways that were delivery zones for trucks into streets, created a curb issue. We are building autonomous vehicles. An autonomous vehicle doesn't know a car is parked or stopped, so it stops. So having a consistent way to be able to navigate around a changing technological environment, part of the challenge that we see with curb rights and curb management is that it's all happening at the coalescence of technology. Modes are changing, robots are making it more difficult. But the reality of this is this will all get worked out. When Uber became Uber, airports said you can't use our curbs, right? So there has already been a near-term conflict between vehicles and people, and what does this piece of concrete really mean? And it's kind of playing itself out even in smaller residential communities in our city, where residents who live on public streets don't want other people parking on the public street in front of their house. And that changing dynamic and that changing expectation, and one of the things Adam said about, curb rights, I will tell you that in the free state of Florida, there's a real misconception of what your rights are. And the right to tell someone else you can't use the public right-of-way is a challenging one. And you have to have some empiricism around it, some data. Safety is a really, really critical part of that. I would argue that a good deal of the risk that happens in a roadway is actually caused by what's behind the curb. And so the curb management, I think, also really morphs into curb design and intentional design. and how we start to imagine changing smaller pieces of infrastructure to allow different types of technologies and different types of access are really going to be key. In our city, we have 95 million people who come through our city every year. We have a massive regional mall. We have a massive regional hospital. We have some interesting, as they say in transportation, origins and destinations. The O's and D's in transportation are pretty significant. And the more diverse that those originators become, and the more diverse that destination becomes, like how many different ways you can get to a hospital, for example, is going to really dictate and drive those end users to figure this out. So from a city side, what we try to do is look at land use policies, zoning policies, building inspection codes, and what can we do to reduce the chance for conflict at a curb or increase the information that someone gets so that they know this isn't your place. And we've had that with big trucks, we've had that with taxis, we've had that with Ubers, we have dedicated lanes in some cases for transit. But the real challenge is that everybody in this room may have an idea or an innovation project, and if you can get it to a point of scale to deploy, you've already disrupted whatever rules we've come up with. So I would tell you that this will never change. It hasn't changed. It will continue going, becoming a place where we're all wrestling around, who can do what and where.
Well, Frank, we didn't get a chance to talk a little bit more about what you're doing in the city of Altamont Springs. So is there something you'd like to touch on that you're doing, making streets smarter?
So one of the things we're doing is we're building digital twins. And if you've not really gotten into the world of digital twins, you will. And if you don't, somebody else will. Digital twin is allowing us to be able to communicate without having to use metaphors with developers. When you go and talk to a hospital about the value of their curb, the only thing they think about is, can an ambulance get in and out? That's all they think about. Go to talk to a regional mall about the value of the curb, access to the curb, all they think about is, don't have anything blocking the store sign. So by using digital twins and creating what ifs in a digital way, it's allowing us to have a conversation that is based on what's it going to look like? And I can show them a picture, but that didn't mean anything to them. So being able to kind of get immersed in that and then populate it with data that has to do with safety, pedestrian car conflicts, car-to-car conflicts, other types of mode conflicts, but then also demonstrate with their own data what their ins and outs are. Because what's interesting is if you talk to and I do, talk to the CEO of the hospital there, he has a viewpoint of access to that hospital that's based on the driver's seat of a BMW. It isn't based on the viewpoint of entering the hospital from the parking lot. So a digital twin, and that's one of the tools we're really focused on, is a helpful tool to explain the reality in a digital environment.
I'm going to let you get back to that one because I think I'm one of those that I had to wrap my head around that digital twin concept. It took a little bit, but I'm going to let you help me with it later. Kevin, tell us more about Lens, and then I want you to answer that question. I've got a question about the curbs, but just give us more information about Lens and what that does and how that helps us.
Lens's mission is to end traffic accidents. So our story is much more of a human one than a technology story. What we do is we're an advanced warning system for the root causes of accidents. So something like a fridge falls off the back of a truck on a freeway, a disabled vehicle in an emergency lane, even things like a pedestrian running on the freeway, we're able to detect those root cause of accidents, notify highway patrol or the sheriff or the city police department, and then they actually dispatch someone to go out there and prevent an accident or save a life.
Okay. So is there anything that technology can do to help with this enforcement on the curb? Is there something it can see or that other enforcement might miss?
I think the closest thing we'd have, we're mainly on the highways, so not as many curbs, but Lens is detecting in emergency lanes to find disabled vehicles or stalled big rigs. And most people don't know, but 1 in 50 disabled vehicles actually results in an accident, so it is very dangerous. And 1 in 100 people who lose their life on the road this year in our country is actually because of a disabled vehicle. So similar to curbs in that it's on the side of the road, but it's a real opportunity to prevent an accident.
Yeah, the roadway is the curb. I mean, the shoulder is the curb to me.
Absolutely.
Coming from the south, I'd probably say, pull over on the curb, even though it's the shoulder. Okay, awesome. Guys, I wanted to get into smart streets, but more like smart cities as a concept, because all of this is kind of around smart cities. Is it really just a concept, or is it something that you're finding implementation to be a reality? Let's start, Adam.
Well, it's certainly a buzzword.
Okay,
And,
gotcha.
and it means different things to different people, but I think it comes back to the conversation we're having about data. And my colleague Sam over there, we were together in Detroit last week for the Cities Today Institute, and there were huge discussions around data, data management, and data insights. And it was actually in the framing from handing off it from one administration to the other. And then when one leadership team leaves the city and a new leadership team comes in, if it's just a box of data, there's not much to do with that. But how do they truly make their city smart to do all these things we're trying to do? Safer curbs, more efficient curbs, more profitable curbs. It's managing that data to turn it into actionable insights, to turn it into true information that they can use for planning purposes. So last week, Sam and I heard about a 20-year planning cycle, and then Frank broke that this morning and talked about a 30-year planning cycle, which is wild. I mean, we think about 20, 30 years ago, there were no smartphones. There was no Uber and Lyft. And we were planning our streets and our curbs around this future that we had no clue about. And now here we are today looking at these cute robots, talking about AI and automation, and building miles of bike lanes for gig workers that are going to be replaced by robots in a few years. And trust me, I know not every city bike lanes are used only by gig workers, only my home city of New York. But you can't use them if you don't build them. I'm not saying don't build them, I don't want to, but it's that mixed use that truly makes a smart city.
Yeah.
That multi-use dynamic curb that is so high in demand, and the thought of storing vehicles is starting to sound silly. And this comes from a company that makes our money on parking transactions. So hopefully from me, you believe me when I say we don't need that much parking in our downtown core. The future of the autonomous vehicle will drop you off and park and charge somewhere that's not as high in demand. That's kind of what the smart city looks like to me. But I think of the cities we work with, their primary focus is around safety and efficiency still.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how do you make it stick? I mean, a lot of people get the technology, and I guess I could pass this a little bit to Frank too. Cities buy certain technology, but are they using it? How are they making it work? Or is it just a purchase that's not being implemented properly? I like what you said about getting the data and using the data, because a lot of time we're just collecting information and we're not doing anything with it. But then once we start to implement these things, Frank, do you see that once a city purchases, or I guess that's the right word, or procures a certain software, platform, whatever it may be, is it being used to its best benefit, I would imagine?
Well, nobody really buys software anymore. You buy a license, right? And
Thank you for that correction.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, you know, I say the same thing. I say, hey, let's get the software. And I'm reminded it's a license. I guess what we've done in our city is we've created a group called the Internal Influencers Group. People at all ranks in our organization to be able to share with other people the technology is being rolled out. I mean, we have this model where, invention's the first time something's done, innovation's when you use that thing differently, and then adoption, when people start using it. And I think that's just a bunch of crap. I think the most important thing is adaptation. How do you use this thing for a purpose? And we spend a lot of time data inventorying and making sure we know what data we have. I mean, using it comes next. You have to know what you've got first, and then you have to make sure the data inputs that you're gathering, all the data you're gathering, is agnostic, so it can be used together. So there are a lot of preliminary steps that go into, are you using the data you have? I mean, we started with the question, do we know what data we have? And what format is it in? And is the software that we're using coagulating data because it is agnostic, or is it separate? And are we building deep silos? It's one of the challenges with terms like smart cities and things like that. I'm old enough I did not have cable when I was growing up until Michael Jackson released Thriller, and the only way you could watch it was to have cable.
MTV.
Okay, so I don't even like the term. I think we're just continuing to evolve. And I think that cable was probably considered smart communication, right? And anybody know how to drive a stick shift in this room? Yeah, they're good. Yeah, okay, there are people who don't know what one is. So I think that what we need to all kind of get our heads around, especially when it comes to data, is that trend analysis really matters, but technologies and lifestyles are going to change. So the value of the data that you've been hanging on to for 30 years may not be relevant to anything other than a history of your city or your county or where you're working. And I think one of the challenges that we all have, I think all of private sector providers and then in governments as well, is to really have a good understanding of what you have and a better understanding of how they go together. Because otherwise you're just piling on, right?
Yeah. Kevin, when an agency, so who purchases who uses Lens? Is it like an FDOT? Is it a DOT? How does that work? And when someone gets that, are they seeing the results, or is it helpful? What's the feedback you're getting?
Lens is used by public safety agencies, so those can range from state highway patrols to county sheriffs to city police departments, to state departments of transportation as well as federal.
Gotcha.
Also by some event organizations, so potentially groups like the World Cup or the Olympics for the 2028 games. Probably the best example we have so far is the California Highway Patrol invited CBS LA into their headquarters, and CBS asked them about the impact they'd had to date, and they stated that Lens was able to help them detect over 5,000 hazards that resulted in preventing 1,000 accidents and actually saving several lives. So that was meaningful to see that before, when people had been losing their lives and getting in accidents because of these things, they're now turning into situations where their lives are being saved.
I wondered about, how the sensors are creating conversation around safety. Because my first thought was it was with a DOT. And so, because I do Target Zero and I do a lot of safety campaigns. And so the question is, could Lens help with maybe not just highways? Is Lens going to go into, like Biscayne Boulevard feels like a highway to me. I don't know how many of you are from here, but it's a straight up drag race from where I live in Aventura all the way down until it turns into 2 lanes, which is around North Miami. Is there opportunity for inner cities and locations like that to use that same thing? Because how many of you have seen somebody moving a mattress on their car and it's flying in the wind and you just know it's going to flip and be on your windshield? Now you can raise your hands with that. How many of you here in Miami have seen somebody moving something that they should not be moving? That happens on Biscayne Boulevard too. Is there a way for Lens to be more centralized, I guess, or more local?
Absolutely. So Lens started working on highways, but also works on surface streets as well.
Awesome.
So any potential cause of an accident on a surface street, Lens could assist in detecting and preventing.
Okay, so basically, our smart cities are pretty smart. Is that what we're saying? We want to say that because sometimes when you're listening to it, as you guys said, it sounds very far-fetched, especially when you talk about a digital twin. Can we talk about that? That wasn't on my list, but I really would like to hear more about that. So, would you like to start, Kevin?
Sure. So, I mean, one way I think to think about smart cities, another word would obviously be to call them intelligent cities, and we're all starting to use intelligence in our cities. Specifically for Lens, the intelligence is a specific intelligence that's designed, it's actually a math-based AI that's designed to detect things in transportation. We don't do anything in digital twins, but I think the framework to be able to say what would something look like if it did happen, and then prevent it before it happens is obviously something we think is really powerful and can make a big impact.
Yeah, I think one of the is exactly correct. Digital twin is just it's a picture that's a database, and it's the software solutions like Lens and others that provide the fuel. They provide the food for a digital twin to be able to represent reality. Digital twin is just it's a hologram essentially. And the data is really important. And I'm not going to call the company out, but I met with a company this last week that says they do safety, says they are able to help police track speed. And we know we've got some smart people that work for us. They started asking questions like, how do you do it? Where does it come from? And it turns out they were sampling IP addresses. So sampling IP addresses, well, that's interesting. Well, what happens if somebody's not got an IP producing technology on? So how many of them are you sampling? And it turns out about a third. So it's not representative data at all. It's just a thing. So one of the things that government really needs, and people who are charged with actually making infrastructure changes and technology changes, is they need to partner with companies like these two companies and other companies that understand that data integrity is really, really important. And because the digital twin is going to be distorted. It's like AI giving you hallucination. If the data's not good, nothing that's going to come out of it's going to be good either.
That's a really important point. And I thought I knew what a digital twin was until I went to the Esri user conference last year in Kevin's hometown of San Diego, Prince's hometown of San Diego. Anyone in the room use Esri?
Yeah.
You guys use? So Passport, we use Esri in our back layer, in our back office, in our portal to kind of meet the cities we work with where they are. So the parking transactions, the citation density mapping, we can overlay those over any other mapping layers that a city is using so that they can see in real time how parking is engaging with flood mapping or socioeconomic data and income zones, so that they're not disproportionately enforcing in one neighborhood over the other or any other planning they want to do. But at that conference, like San Francisco Airport, their digital twin is a full 3D image, drones flying through the airport, mapping everything with lasers so that digitally they can see that replication. Most of our clients, they are seeing it as the streetscape. The rules, the rights, the regulations, those curb rights, those curb enforcements, the hours that they're in place, all available for them. But boy, Frank's point, some cities see that map drawn in ink, and then it's this handy snapshot of the ways things were at this point in time. But cities that are using the digital twin, the more advanced, the smart city way, Michelle, they're using live dynamic data. It is not a snapshot of a point in time, but it is being constantly updated by all these inputs and sensors and transactions that are happening.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask. How's it being used? And so I was thinking, are they using it more to predict things, or do you find that some are just reacting and then taking the data and using it to make changes, enforce, or are they just seeing it and then making the plans? Does that make sense? Like predictive versus reactive, I guess is what I'm asking. Are cities using it the way that they can pre-plan?
As a city guy, I would tell you that, everything that we do is predictive except respond to 911 calls. That's reactive. So, we can't tell where there's going to be a crime, but we can use data to predict places that could be, because of trend analysis would suggest there have been. So I think all cities really have to do something, and both these guys are reflecting this. You can't partner with somebody that's static. No worries, got it. You can't partner with somebody that's static. And we partner with Esri. Esri uses us as a beta location on the East Coast. And they were developing a DoD graphic input drone camera. And we deployed it for them, and we did some data collection. it quadrupled the number of data points that were in a traditional digital twin. So if we were partnering with a company that is not also trying to, Esri is platforming up all the time. So when you were talking about using it, I would say, more importantly, you got to pick the right partners who understand an evolution of their own business and where they're going to go, because the data is static. So once you have it, you have it. How you use it really depends on what you're facing. If you can't amalgamate it, doesn't really matter. And if you can't put it in the next generation of software like Esri that we're using, it's wasted money. Okay. So I think before you really focus on what kind of data you're going to collect and what you're going to use it for, I think you have to focus on who's your partner. Are they going to be there? Does their idea have legs? Is this a 3-year one and done? And I think that what you're hearing both of them describing is the importance that data can play in our decision making. What I'm hearing is it's really important to partner with somebody that understands that data is just data. It's what decision can you get from it, and is this partner going to be alive and well tomorrow?
So you're using partner and partnership. Who are some of these partners?
Well, for example, we partner with a company called Causeway Technologies,
Okay.
which has about 90% of the market share in London to do connected vehicle technology stuff. I think one of the things that Kevin had talked about is that the danger that a stalled vehicle on a highway can have. So if you're driving down a highway and you're going 75 miles an hour and there is a road crew laying asphalt at 2 in the morning, our team using Causeway Technologies can enter in that closure and in real time APIs out to Waze and to Google Maps. So your onboard technology, your in-hand technology is telling you that there is a closure up ahead, so you can slow down, because at night you're going fast, you may be sleepy. That piece of technology can save lives. So we look at roadway technologies, AI technologies. We're going to put radar systems on the backside of our garbage trucks. We're putting AI systems on our garbage trucks and our police vehicles. I mean, I think one of the most important things for cities and governments to understand is that if they have an asset, they have a data gathering vehicle, right? And you have to use them. I don't know, blah, blah, blah. Yes, 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 et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
You both have spoken about Esri. Can you explain that one, Adam? What exactly is that for anyone that's in here that's just visiting and doesn't know that technology?
Esri's a mapping company.
Okay.
I didn't realize how much I loved maps, but I could just stare at a map for a while. I guess that's there's a name for that, something of file.
Cartography?
Something cartophile.
Yeah.
I think it's a cartophile. I'm a cartophile. Proud of it, but yeah. What shocks me, Michelle, is how many of the parking authorities and curb management departments we work with that have never heard the name Esri. And then we go to Esri and they tell us, oh, well, we work with that city, but it's someone in the planning department, planning and the policy department. So to your question before of like how to use this data, my answer would have been yes. If I'm in the policy and planning department, of course, I'm going to use the data to plan and to build. If I'm in parking enforcement, I'm going to use the data to route my parking enforcement officers. If I'm working on social justice within the city, I'm going to make sure that everything is being done equally, and that equal parts of the city are getting the attention that they deserve. So when it comes to parking enforcement, and in Kevin's world, your answer is going to be the same as mine, I'm guessing, it has to be real time. So to Frank's point of like only 911, well, yeah, 911's great, and we want to automate every parking enforcement element there is, but if someone's blocking the bus lane, snapping a picture of their plate and sending them a ticket in the mail a week from now doesn't clear the safety violation. That bus still needs to swerve around that blocked vehicle, and that's the same for crosswalks, bike lanes, all these daylighting initiatives, the times that cities have spent to block that parking so that there's a clear line of vision, and then truck pulls up on the curb and blocks it. So we need to clear those things in real time if we want to be as safe of a city as we claim we want to be.
You mentioned, Kevin, World Cup, and it's coming to Miami. When? June? For real? Uh-oh, it's coming in June. How do you use Lens as it relates to World Cup? I mean, just give me a scenario of how that's used and how Miami could potentially use it.
So one example to the point about a bus lane being blocked is you could imagine for World Cup, for anyone who's on a bike or a scooter, if there was a vehicle blocking the access for someone to get to the games, then that vehicle could be detected, and then public safety officers could help move that vehicle so people could get to the game.
I was going to ask you how the agencies use your data. So is it real time? Is it collected and then reviewed later? How's the data used?
The data is real time.
Okay.
It comes from real time video feeds from CCTV cameras.
There we go.
So these are $25 billion of existing infrastructure that was funded by taxpayer dollars that helped provide more visibility on the roads. Now is able to provide a source of data for highway patrol officers and different public safety officers to detect pre-accidents or hazards on those feeds, and then they're able to respond to the potential event and then prevent the accident.
Because I think we got a lot of people concerned about what's going to happen when FIFA converges. Now, it's going to be in a particular portion of the county, but people will be hanging out all over the place. So I think that's interesting. We might have to talk a little bit later. Let me ask, for me, I am in stakeholder engagement, I'm in community outreach, I'm in equitable engagement. How do we see the equity piece as it relates to smart cities? When I think about it, my first thought is certain areas will have the cameras and the technology, and then there are certain areas that don't. If there's a twin city, is it covering every part of the city, or are there equity issues? I guess I should ask, and I'll start with you, Kevin.
Fortunately, the number of CCTV cameras is around 100,000. And so we are able to detect accidents, pre-accidents, and the root causes of accidents in many areas, from really dense cities to more sparse locations. But there is a pretty large coverage.
Okay. Frank, do you see any issues with equity as it relates to what we talked about earlier? We were on a panel together and we were talking about the trolley system and the trolley going places that traditionally wouldn't go. Are there equity issues with smart cities?
So yeah, I mean, there are. If we're completely honest about it, if you're not doing roadway improvements in communities, you're not putting underground fiber in. If you're not putting underground fiber in, then it's going to be hard to get those sort of data connections. So from where I sit, in our city, we repave all the streets. It doesn't matter whose community it's in. It doesn't matter, what type of commerce is being conducted. We take care of that infrastructure. But I can tell you, right on the outskirts of our city, there is a community that has had complained about not having bleachers at a kid's playground, the kid's baseball playground. So the government in charge of that put bleachers into the parking stalls. So now there are bleachers and no place to park. So I think that your question is a really important one. And we learned through COVID that the disconnect between those who have high bandwidth service and those who don't had a difficult time doing school from home. And so what we try to do, and what we encourage other governments to do, is that when you go do an improvement, do all of them. So when you're going to replace a street or resurface a street, put in drive lines for fiber. Because there are places, in Florida has very libertarian in some places, so cameras are not welcome. But there will be one day when they are. So I see true equity issues. I hear true equity issues. We have a very diverse city. And one of the challenges is your priorities are reflected in your budget. So for us, what we do is we see our city as a responsibility, and we take that shareholder responsibility very seriously. And you have to start with the honesty of not every city is equitable.
I know that you're not with the cable people, although we had a cable conversation, but talking about fiber, and this is off topic completely. My son is a video editor, a big gamer. I was trying to find him a new condo, and he doesn't do Wi-Fi. I don't know how many of you out there build your own computers, but he doesn't do Wi-Fi. And it was the needle in the haystack. I could not find fiber unless I was at an older building. So is fiber still moving forward? Because all I could find was this high-end Wi-Fi. It was hard, y'all. I'm just going to tell you. He only wanted fiber in a pool, and that was the hardest thing to find. So what is really happening with fiber?
Yeah, so after COVID, the federal government empowered and funded a nationwide installation of fiber where it didn't exist. We've had 5 fiber companies through our city. Like it or not, fiber is the technology that carries bandwidth right now, and it is an important piece of hardware. Wi-Fi is important, and it obviously it is piece of the puzzle, but fiber and fiber channels are really, really important. And outside of certain areas in the United States, fiber is the fastest it's light,
Oh, gosh,
right?
yes.
So it is the fastest running type of technology that can be used with high bandwidth. And so when fiber companies come in, all of our residents hate it because they dig up their yards, and we just say, oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, you're right, I'm so sorry.
But then when
Yes,
they
I'm
get
so
it-
sorry. What are you going to do? I'm just going to feel sorry, but your grass will grow back, and you'll have fiber.
Well, what I thought I was noticing is that some of the newer buildings didn't have it because maybe it was expensive. And that's where I thought it would be found.
No, they have it.
Okay.
They're just marketing that they have Wi-Fi. But it's there.
They played me, huh? Okay, all right. Adam, sounds like you want to get into that one. Tell me.
It's my old job as a
Okay.
network infrastructure guy, but yeah, I'm guessing the building is lit up for fiber, but the fiber is run to wireless access points, not to places where you can plug in an
I
actual
see.
office or apartment.
Okay,
So,
okay.
it's more of a wiring issue within the building than a connectivity issue.
No,
on the
that
building
was
itself.
my own
Sorry.
shameless request. I just needed to know.
No, you can have thousands of miles of wire or thousands of feet of wire inside the building, or one fiber bundle at the bottom of it. And so it's remember who they're speaking to. They're speaking to your son.
Michelle, to take that, and what Sam and I heard last week was a wild debate in Detroit around these sensors and cameras and this call for fiber years ago that needed to be run. Now these cameras that they're installing are installed in 3 weeks. They're solar powered, they're 5G connected, they have battery backups. So in terms of bringing the fiber conversation back to the curb, I think we're at a really interesting turning point now where if there's enough sun, solar works, right? But the technology is getting so small, so lightweight, and so reliable that, I don't know, 5 years from now, the notion of running fiber might seem silly given the infrastructure costs and the timeline.
That's what I was thinking, the infrastructure cost. Because I couldn't come up with any other thing, but you just shared, Frank, that makes sense. I wasn't thinking about it. I just know he wanted to plug directly into the whatever, and I'm going, dear, mommy is having a hard time. And my son is 32, guys, so it's not like he's a baby or anything, but I'm still going, mommy, but just chasing it down. But what I want to do now is, in one of our last sessions, we ran out of time. So I heard that there were going to be a lot of questions. So who's got the first question? Sir, if you would stand up. I think, do we have a mic for those that are speaking? Yeah. You probably could project, I'm sure, but. Frank.
I couldn't hear you. Could you say it louder? Or come closer or?
Yeah, I have a question on the, you mentioned Esri a few times, as well as other like software providers. You know, how do you balance lock-in risk with software providers versus and data sovereignty for your administration versus the access to the best proprietary technology? You know, what's the balance there? And I guess, you know, in the age of AI, you know, as much as you're going to use like LLM, you know, within the administration, on top of the data that's going to be shared, a number of skills and context will be also shared. So, you know, how do you balance those two?
You know, that's a really great question. So part of the balancing act is we have to provide, particularly for certain types of purchases and procurements, you have to balance the state law related to procurement and giving lots of people an opportunity to consider how you're going to spend the money and then allowing them to propose. What we try to do to mitigate the risk is we try to do a lot of research on the front end before we issue a procurement or we decide that we're going to pursue some sort of technology. The other thing that we do is we will have a longer review period so we can meet with people, not just read what they propose. Because one of the things we've learned is that the way that someone will say they're going to, solve a problem, or how they're going to solve the problem is different than the way they wrote they're going to solve the problem or address an issue. So we try to mitigate some risk with just the personal interaction and kind of the interrogatories, the question and answer part of it. But you can't solve for every risk. And government that is risk adverse is falling farther and farther behind. Every second they're risk adverse, they're unwilling to consider other things. So sometimes it's not about mitigating risk. It's about standing in front of everybody else and saying, look, I'll take the first bullet. You guys keep working. And so mitigated by being open and transparent, face-to-face discussions and doing a lot of research. And sometimes you just can't mitigate the risk. You have to figure it out. Did I answer your question?
Thank you for that question. Anyone else? I'm sure there's someone else. Corey. Hey, I know Corey.
Hi. My question is about, has to do with the CCTV. With facial recognition becoming more and more used, and granted, when you're out in the public, there is no reasonable, assumption of anonymity. But for instance, in Miami-Dade County, they're working on adaptive transportation signaling, right? Which uses cameras to look at the traffic flow and adjust independently. So how do you convey to the public who's kind of afraid of having cameras everywhere watching them that the usefulness of this technology and how it makes life better for them?
One of the things that so Lens does not use any personal information. That means there's no faces, there's no surveillance. There's the term personally identifiable information, so Lens has no PII. That's because Lens is designed to prevent accidents, and you don't need any personal information to decide if you want to help someone who's stranded on the side of the road, or in the case of a pedestrian who's unfortunately running across the freeway, all you want to do is to be able to assist that person and then get them back to their family or the facility. So for Lens's case, it's somewhat simpler because there's actually no need for any PII to be able to prevent accidents or save lives with how public safety officers use Lens.
I would also, you were in the session this morning. What we're doing is we're also including classes like that in our STEM lab and teaching kids about it. We did that with Reclaim Water. Parents are like, oh my God, that's just terrible, don't touch it, don't touch it. And then we teach kids really what it is. So I think one of those opportunities for a government is to really invest in opportunities to expose kids to what that technology really is. So they'll see it, as opposed to seeing it as something to fear, they'll see it as something to use and leverage.
Corey, I guess it depends what you consider PII. Obviously, we talked a lot about curb rights. Those curb rights are often tied to a license plate. So for CCTV camera, facial recognition, that's not our world, but certainly license plate recognition is. And those license plate scanners are everywhere. As Frank was saying, they're attached to city buses, they're attached to garbage trucks, they're attached to vehicles, they're attached to poles. And I think there's a lot of buzz out there around the data security, the data privacy, the data stewardship, those conversations of how these providers and the connective tissue are all managing that data. I guess the not so nice way to say it is if you carry one of these in your pocket, you've given away all of your privacy already. So the notion of a license plate being captured at a single point in time is less concerning, but I am more focused on the data security and the data stewardship, and that the people who own that data are doing exactly what they say they're doing with it and protecting it from bad actors to access.
Thank you for that, Corey. That was one of the questions I wanted to ask about security and surveillance and just how people feel when you're trying to get maybe a community to buy into it, thinking that they're being surveilled in a way that is uncomfortable, especially in a place like South Florida where we have people from all over the world who might do things differently where they come from, or might just be concerned about some of the ways that our data is being used for us and against us, unfortunately.
I'll give you a real world example. Body-worn cameras. Body-worn cameras.
Body-worn.
Police officers are now equipped with body-worn cameras. And when we put cameras on our police officers, residents said, "What are you doing? Why are you taping me?" And now they call and say, "I want to request a copy of my body-worn camera because it keeps everyone safe, it keeps everybody honest." And what we don't do is we don't have a governance bill of rights and stuff like that for data. That's not how we handle the David system. We have rules, and we put how to use data into our personnel policies, because if you use it wrong, you'll get fired. And so making a promise to the community that you're going to be transparent with data, we've been transparent with everything along the way. Policing has changed. We simply make it, this is our standard. If you don't live up to the standard, you'll get fired. And if you really break the law, you're going to get arrested. And so I think that there are so many paradigms for that trust thing and transparency thing that Adam talked about. There are so many examples of where the society has effectively deployed technology. We just sometimes start thinking about it in certain ways, and as Adam and Kevin have talked about, using data acquisition inside of rights-of-ways and on the edges of rights-of-ways to make things safer is no different than putting body-worn cameras on a cop. There's no different than a license plate reader that finds an abducted child on the highway. And if you go to Disney, you don't realize exactly how much of your personal information you gave away. And we all feel okay about that.
Adam, I saw you shaking your head.
When you said Disney, I was thinking Home Depot or Walmart. I mean, yeah, they know everything. They know when you're standing in front of the refrigerators looking at refrigerators, if you have your phone with you. Don't shoot the messenger.
I'm usually not speechless, but all of a sudden everything started coming to mind. Kevin, can you add to that just a little bit?
I think in Lens's case, again, it's just a little bit simpler because something like a disabled vehicle or a stalled big rig. So big rigs, for example, the 18-wheeler trucks are 5% of the vehicles on the road, but they're 10% of accidents. So again, if there's a disabled big rig on an on-ramp, we're simply detecting that so an officer can assist them to move. So we have somewhat of a simpler use case.
Yeah, I was going to say it seems that most people wouldn't know that Lens was doing what Lens is doing.
And all of the CCTV feeds are publicly available feeds, so I think it's pretty well known that there's public video feeds on the highways. And again, any of the information in those feeds, there's nothing personally identifiable, so they remain completely PII free.
So last takeaway, or giveaway, because you guys are giving away such great information. Frank, if there was a small town that wanted to be a smart city, I'm going to use my little town. I got a fellow South Carolinian back there. Spartanburg, South Carolina. What would you tell the city of Spartanburg?
So I have two children that live in South Carolina, so I'm there a little bit. I'd probably use the word equity there.
For sure.
So I think the takeaway I would have is kind of what I said earlier. You know, the community that they're living in today is a product of what they thought about 30 years ago, and it's really incumbent upon leaders in all communities to ask themselves, is this as good as it gets, and is this what I want for my community? And either they're going to have vision for something different, or they're not. And if they don't, they're going to waste taxpayer money. They're going to waste their energy. So I would say the message I would say is that leading today requires courage, and the courage of your convictions. So the takeaway I would give to South Carolinians and pretty much everybody else is the world is changing, and it's not going back, and it's not going to go backwards. And there are going to be places where there's going to be a collection of intellectual capacity, and people who are smart in communities are going to go find it. So if you want people who have intellectual capabilities to stay in your community and invest, you have to create an environment for them to want to stay in.
Kevin, we have 34 distinct municipalities here in Miami-Dade County, and you said that you work with public service agencies. How would you recommend they get involved with what you're doing? Is there a place for a small town, like there's an area called Medley, lots of trucks come in and out. How would the town of Medley be able to use Lens?
We'd recommend exactly what John Rassant and the CoMotion team have done so remarkably well, is bringing together private and public organizations to talk about how they could prevent accidents and save lives, and start to share success stories, and then those success stories spread, and then people are able to help more people.
Awesome, thank you. Adam, you're not in Miami, but how could you help Miami-Dade County?
I would piggyback off of what Frank said in regards to change, but to add to that the element of the pace of change. Right, we're not going backwards, but the pace of change is faster today than it was yesterday, and it's slower today than it will be tomorrow. So, Carmen, I'm going to quote Romy quoting Wayne Gretzky, saying you got to skate to where the puck's going to be. And I think hearing these planning cycles, I think we need to shorten the planning cycle and have a vision for 2040, but plan for 2028 and move quickly. Do the RFI, get the information. You cannot solve a problem you do not fully understand.
Any other questions before we wrap this up? Is there anyone with a burning question? Please.
Adam, you work with cities all around the country, and I'm wondering, as we're at a conference for public-private partnerships, how are you taking the knowledge that you get from X city, and if Y city is lagging in various ways, how can you advise them to be more innovative or learnings across these different platforms?
Yeah, we show up to CoMotion, we show up to all these different places and engage. But yeah, no, we have a forum, we have tools built for our cities to be able to learn off of each other. And Brittany Yoakley, who's here, is our group product manager for our enforcement side. The tools that she builds and she manages, anytime we make an update for one city, of course, we're engaging with the other cities, learning about how they're doing. I don't know anyone, and I think this is the core of your question, I don't know anyone that has spent more time on the streets with enforcement teams than Brittany. And people know their cities like the back of their hand, but the nuances from city to city and the amount of time that Brittany spends on the road actually driving around and enforcing the curb and seeing it. And I mean, our client success team made 70 unique in-person client visits last year as well. So a lot of this engagement is happening in closed rooms, talking about what we've learned, what we've seen, but there are no better forums than when CoMotion brings those cities together in the room to talk about the problems. So jokes aside, these types of conferences are huge.
Well, thank you all for joining us. I think this wraps it up for us. We had 1 minute left. We usually don't even have 1 minute left. I think we're done at 10:45. Well, thank you for joining. We hope to see you at another one of our sessions. Please enjoy some of the refreshments. I think lunch is coming. Shailene, is there a lunch break? What time? Okay, networking break. So thank you so much for your participation and being a part of this panel. Give all of our panelists a round of applause for their infinite knowledge, comedy, and good looks. All right.
Man, I've really enjoyed it. Yeah. I'm gonna reach out to Bob and tell Bob that we kind of cross-connected.
So, yeah, it was great. I left last week in Detroit to begin with, so I was
Thank you, Michelle and panel, for such an amazing panel. I would like to announce now we have a networking break from 10:45 to 11 a.m. We have a great list of exhibitors with demos from Serve Robotics, Waymo, and Wing. Right back here at 11 a.m., we have an announcement from the Mayor, Marlise Surfray, from the city of Ponce, Puerto Rico.
Back in the green room. Okay. Yeah. So, go ahead, I'm sorry. Like
Yeah, I'm getting video. So she's about right here.
Right there?
She's about right here, right? Oh, there.
Ay, qué nana me veo. ¿Está bien?
How's it look? Is it good? Phenomenal.
De todos modos, no vamos a poder bajar el...
Are we good?
Nosotros pasamos bien aquí. Tiene video y tiene todo. Yeah. Si quiere se puede sentar, yo le llamo para que venga, si no. Bien. Yeah, I'll call you to come over here. Just come in. Well, good morning, everyone. Morning, morning. I'm excited to be here today. This is the 7th edition of CoMotion Miami. Who would have thought 7 years ago, right? I still remember when I went to LA for LA CoMotion, what it was called back then. And the work that John Rosan has done over there kind of blew my mind, right? It was really a different space. It was not, another conference with stale slides and stale coffee and a lot of presentations. It was a movement. It was a vibe, right? It was a space dedicated towards the introduction, intersection between mobility and innovation, and all with the ultimate goal of making our cities a better place to be. My name is Carlos Cruz Casas. I'm the Vice President of Mobility and Innovation for TYLIN, and I'm thrilled to be here today. Welcome you all to Miami. Formerly the Chief Mobility Innovation for Miami-Dade County. And as I look at us today in what was an idea 7 years ago, now it's a powerhouse reality, right? I look at CoMotion Miami continues to deliver that promise to bring public sector and private sector together. In fact, the mayor, Daniela Levin Cava, a while ago, she mentioned it very eloquently. She said, CoMotion is collaboration in motion, right? Start thinking about how these things kind of come together. And that's exactly what this is. And what makes CoMotion special is not the technology on the floor, although that's great, it's the people and that common goal of bringing people together to make sure that innovation is steered towards real world outcomes that actually change lives. And let me tell you something, in my experience, I have learned to know that innovation does not have a size requirement, right? Sometimes we think that you need to have a big city, a big budget in order to land a moonshot, to bring big technology, but that is just a myth. Technology is actually within reach of everyone throughout the world. And I have today, and I'm pleased to say that we have a living example of that. For the last few years, the team from the city of Ponce has been coming to CoMotion Miami and experiencing what we're having here. Just like I did in LA a few years ago, they did not come here just to watch and sit down. They came here to learn, to engage, to actually ask questions and see how the others have experienced something similar, have gone through the benefits of what is bringing technology to their city. And today, we celebrate a pivotal win because of the connections made right here in this room several years ago. The city of Ponce now is ready to move forward to bring technology to their residents, to start making sure that real-time information is accessible to riders. And now, being from the island myself, I know exactly how much real-time information will change the daily life of people in my hometown in Puerto Rico. But to talk more about the technology, to make this possible, please, I want to welcome here the co-founder and CEO of Swiftly, my good friend, Johnny Simkin. Johnny?
Awesome. Thank you, Carlos. So my name is Johnny Simkin. I'm the co-founder and the CEO at Swiftly. And when I first started taking public transit, I would open Google Maps to see when my next bus or train would arrive. And sometimes there was no real-time information at all, and sometimes the real-time information that I received was incorrect. It said to be there in 5 minutes, and no bus would come, or it said to be there in 5 minutes, and I showed up in 5 minutes, and the bus had just left, and then I knew I was waiting 20, 30, 40 minutes for the next bus to come. And it made it really hard to rely on public transit when I realized I couldn't trust the information that I was receiving. And that's why I started Swiftly, is to help riders around the world be able to rely on public transit and have information that they can trust so that they can get from A to B. And we talked about accessibility earlier, and public transit plays such a vital role in cities and communities around the world, and we want to support that. So that's why I'm really excited about this partnership with the city of Ponce to be able to bring real-time information to riders, whether they're residents or tourists visiting the city, whether they're going to work or to school or taking La Playa to go to the beach. We want to support them with accurate information that they can trust so that they can rely on public transit to get from A to B, and that's exactly what we're going to deliver. Beyond that, I had the pleasure of meeting the mayor and her team last night, and one of the things that I was blown away with was how forward-thinking and innovative you all are, and I'm really excited to be able to innovate with you throughout this partnership and hopefully set a new standard and an example for other cities throughout Puerto Rico to follow as well. So thank you very much for this partnership. We're really excited about it. And I'll hand it back to you, Carlos.
Thank you, Johnny. That is the collaboration in motion magic right there that I mentioned, right? You know, from an idea to a conversation to now a step forward to ensure the residents of Ponce know exactly when their bus coming through. So to share more about this journey and the future of her beautiful city, it is my pleasure to introduce a leader who proves that vision and passion knows no borders. Please help me give a warm Miami welcome to Mayor of Ponce. Mayor.
Hello to everybody. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you today. Today is a very important moment to the city of Ponce. We are proud to become the first municipality in Puerto Rico to have a public transportation system connect to GTFS platform through our partnership with Swiftly, through the company Thailand City Solution. This may sound like a technical step, but for us, it means something very simple. We are making our transportation system easier to use, easier to understand, and more reliable to our people in the city of Ponce. This is about improving everyday life. This agreement helps us move forward in using technology to give better information to our riders, to improve our operations, and to connect our city in a smarter way. This did not happen overnight. For the past few years, our planning and economic development team, they are here, has been coming to CoMotion Miami. We came here to learn, to listen, and to connect. We meet people, we saw new ideas, we identified the tools and partners we need. And today, we see the result of that work. This is why events like CoMotions are so important. They bring city together, they create real collaboration, and most importantly, they create real result. Today is one of those results. We are very excited about what this means for Ponce. In Puerto Rico, we have around 1.5 vehicles per person. Because of this, public transportation has not always been the first option for many people. So for us, the challenge is clear. We need to make transit more reliable, more visible, and easier to use, and we have already started. We have improved our system by increasing road frequency from every 90 minutes to every 30 minutes, improving signs and information for passengers, updating maps and making them easier to understand, launching digital tools and communication platforms, investing in public awareness so people know how to use the system. This change have helped us build trust with our user. People are using the system more because the system works better. And today, we take the next step. With this partnership with Swiftly and Thailand City Solution, we are bringing real-time information, better data, and more connected experience to our riders. This will help us continue improving reliability and service every day. I want to take a moment to say thank you. Thank you to the CoMotion team for creating this space where cities like ours can grow and connect. And thank you, Thailand Solution, Carlos, Cruz Casa, for believing in Ponce and for being part of this journey with us. We are very proud of this moment. For many cities, this may be something common, but for us, this is a big step forward. It's shown what is possible when we invest, when we collaborate, and when we stay focused on our people. Today, we are not just signing an agreement. We are taking a strong step toward a more connected, more modern, and more accessible transportation system for Ponce. Thank you very much, and thank you too.
I'm going to be standing, you said, right? Right. Yeah. Bienvenidos, bienvenidos. ¿Cómo están todo el mundo? How's everyone doing today? We'll give it 2 minutes, but I would love the panelists if you can join me here on stage. Yes. All right. Pídeme. ¿Tú? Sí, sí. Sí, seguro, seguro. ¿Dónde está? Ok, perfecto.
Javier, ¿puedes ver?
Sí. A ver qué es lo que...
El hielo y así arrancas.
Vale, vale. Perfecto.
Si puedes arrancar y ya sube.
Fenomenal. Un poco esto que estoy un poco mayor. Yo.
poco ya, no sé. Sí. Hello. Hello, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Javier Iraola. I'm Trade Commissioner of Spain here in Miami, and it is a pleasure to welcome you. Well, this year we are really proud to be joined by a delegation of 10 Spanish companies representing strength, innovation, and diversity of Spain's mobility and technology ecosystem. It is a pleasure to welcome you to today's roundtable discussion on the future of urban mobility, where we will explore key areas such as infrastructure and technology, accessible mobility, data, and human-centered design. Spain has been working for years to rethink and transform the way we move through our cities, and today it stands at the forefront of innovation in urban mobility with a dynamic ecosystem of companies and initiatives driving progress in sustainability, digitalization, and next-generation mobility solutions, not only in big cities as Madrid or Barcelona, but also in medium-sized cities, Malaga, Valencia, Bilbao, etc. Urban mobility is not only about transportation. It is about shaping cities that are inclusive, sustainable, and functional for everyone, regardless of where they live, how they commute, or their income level. Spain is widely recognized today as a global leader in this field, and this leadership is the result of public policies aligned with European and national climate strategies, a strong collaboration between public institutions, industry, and research centers, and a highly competitive industrial base that embraces innovation. Spanish companies are at the forefront of technological development in this space, and their solutions are not only improving efficiency and connectivity across transport system, but also helping to significantly reduce the environmental impact of mobility in our daily lives. This year is also a privilege to have speakers who have made a real impact in Spain's mobility ecosystem, including leaders such as Carlos Hacha from MT Madrid that was talking before on the other area, as well as representatives from CICE and IDOM. And we are also joined by companies whose solutions go beyond traditional public infrastructure approaches, offering truly innovative and accessible technologies such as Interlight and Navilens. We are especially pleased to have with us Carlos Cruz Casas as moderator today of today's panel. And Carlos brings extensive experience in urban mobility and public transport in Miami, with a long-standing international career leading transformative projects in the sector, making him ideally placed to guide today's conversation. It is now my pleasure to hand over to Carlos Cruz Casas, who will introduce our distinguished panelists. But before they begin, I would also like to invite you to join us for the lunch break, where you will have the opportunity to meet the full Spanish delegation, and the companies will briefly introduce their solutions, providing an excellent opportunity to connect with innovative players who are making a real difference in the mobility sector. So I would like to warmly thank to all our speakers and participants. And Carlos, thank you very much again, and the floor is yours. Thank you.
All right, now we know that we're between lunch and you all, right? So I'm excited to be here. My name is Carlos Cruz Casas, the VP, Vice President of Mobility and Innovation for TY Lin and here in the United States. My career has been dedicated towards making cities better through technology and policy, which is why I'm so thrilled to dive into how Spain is currently setting the gold standard for integrated mobility. Spain has become a global laboratory for mobility, and I have here the architects, so let's hear from them quickly, and then of course we'll see if we can have a conversation going. I want to jump in immediately into a lightning round, right? So to get people excited and really understand who are here. I asked them quickly, you already heard the names and the position, the title with the company, but you haven't heard whether it's a superpower or a big project win that they have done. So if you can take a quick second, maybe a minute, to talk about a superpower or a big project win that you have, so the people get to know what you bring to the table today. Should we start at the end? Yeah.
Okay. I'm Erich. I'm a digital consulting manager at TIDOM in Latin America and North America. And I don't have a superpower, but maybe I can say I have the ability to connect strategy to operation reality in different cultural and sectorial environments to get things done. So it's important to go from strategy to operations reality, I think.
Yeah, that's a superpower, I tell you. Laura?
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here for the second time in CoMotion. I'm Laura, and I'm representing CICE. We are a technology and systems integrator. We're very active here in Florida. And well, if I had to say superpower, I would say the ability to cross borders and identify new business opportunities and connecting them with the right strategy and technology to make them happen.
From Pere?
Hello. Hello. No. Yeah. Hi, I'm Pere Serrat. I'm the US delegate of Interlight. Interlight is a company that basically is integrating technology to make cities more accessible, but so aligned with Vision Zero plan in order to prevent accidents and so. So my superpower, I would say, I'm always looking for urban areas in order to detect points to improve. So we can make a smart city, a real smart city, being inclusive and avoiding risk with accidents and improving the traffic flow.
Hi everyone, I'm Martin Garcia. I'm with Navilens. Some of you may know me already from last year and the work we've been doing here in Miami. And we are a solution for accessibility. And if I had to say one superpower that we have, is that without using any power, without using batteries, without using GPS, we can make sure that we create a smart, accessible, and innovative solution in a very low friction way in the cities. So I think that's the Naviland superpower, I would say. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Carlos Hacha. I'm the CIO of EMT Madrid. As a superpower, it's quite difficult to say. For me, it's not a superpower moving 1.8 million passengers per day. The superpower is trying to do every single day a little bit better than the day before. This is a superpower in our company.
That's phenomenal. So I know it's a little challenging, but we wanted to start hearing from that, right? And I think it's you can tell the passion that comes through here about moving people and doing so efficiently, right? Carlos, you and I, we talk over the years in different ways, right? And you have said that the EMT Madrid isn't just a bus company, right? It's a structural backbone of the city, right? In a world of shiny objects, what is something in the infrastructure that can actually become more revolutionary in Madrid right now?
Well, for me, the real revolution is the new operating model. We move from working in an isolated way as an operator, just to operate our services, to coordinating mobility as a city system. That started with electrification of the fleet, operational infrastructure, and quickly extended to the street level, user-facing infrastructure like stops, traffic lights, and mobility hubs. People can't see this directly, but it connects energy, fleets, people, and data. Without that, technology is just pilots, not real life.
Yeah.
This is a real revolution.
Yeah. I'm going to jump to the other side of the chair here. Eric, you've seen data transformation in over 15 countries, right? What is the one thing the Spanish mobility projects do differently or better than the rest of the world right now?
I think European cities, like in the United States, right now they have already large amount of data, and the important thing is to know how to use it and how to create value from that data. So one thing I have seen in Europe and Spanish cities is they are emphasizing in data governance. I think it's important to identify, classify data, to get quality data as input for smart platforms to get real information for decision making and to add value to the end users. So I think it's very important to not just focus on data, because raw data doesn't add value per se. It's important to have a data governance model who help us to have better data and quality data to add value to end users.
Yeah, that's great, right? So it's not just about getting a bunch of little facts here and there. It's how you turn that into information and be valuable. Laura, CICE has built massive systems across multiple continents, right? And you probably hear from cities across, and I know we have Laura here, and we have also Laura Chase, right, from the ITSA over there. When a city says that they want to be a smart city, right, do you find they're actually looking for a solution to a problem or just a catalog of new gadgets that come through?
Well, that's a good question. In my experience, we often get both situations, quite often. In the ideal case, there are cases in which cities come to us with like a very clearly identified challenge that they are facing, or a very clear problem that they want to solve. And that's where we get to add real value by identifying which is the right technology to solve that issue. But in many other cases, it is true that many cities still look or approach the term of smart city as almost as a catalog of technologies that look for a problem instead of the other way around. Yeah. So what we try to do in CICE is we try to work very close to our clients and try to reframe that conversation so that they don't ask themselves what technology do we want to stand out for having implemented, but rather what challenges are we facing at the moment and what technology is going to help us with those challenges. So yeah, and for example, here in the bus rapid transit corridor, we implemented a system that gave priority to buses. We reduced travel times and we cut emissions, CO2 emissions. So these kind of technologies work really well.
And time is precious, right? Saving time on your commute is a great value. At some point, maybe not today, but I want to know how we went from intelligent transportation to smart, right? You know, what's better, intelligent or smart? I'm not going to open that conversation today, but Martin, we often talk about smart cities, but you focus on legible cities. You know, do you want to tell us a little more about why do you think wayfinding is often the overlooked piece of the sustainable mobility puzzle?
Yes, I believe that a lot of cities, when they're looking at solutions to innovate, they look at the physical infrastructure. And we have great companies here that work on the electric solutions that can be helpful for the infrastructure. But the problem is that if you don't have a way of showing and providing that information to the citizens, the technologies that you implement are not going to be used. And as a matter of fact, yesterday we were at the port and we were discussing the different solutions and innovations that they're looking at implementing. And they were telling us that they've been working on several different projects for the physical infrastructure. And despite all the work that they're doing, people get off the cruises, they get an Uber, and there's so much traffic that they need to step out of the vehicle and walk. Yeah. So that's a clear example of the problem that people face when the information and the wayfinding, the signage and the wayfinding is not provided correctly. So I think that would be a clear example of how the importance of the wayfinding in the smart cities.
Yeah, and wayfinding for everyone, right? And I think that's a great value. Navilens just launched here the wayfinding in Miami, and we're going to hear tomorrow from Ana Martinez, but she's already a user of the application and very enthusiastic and a comment about how successful it's been so far. But Ana, thank you for joining us today. I was formerly the Chief Mobility Innovation Officer for Miami-Dade County, and I was always asked about bringing new technologies and mobility solutions. And often what I encounter is all these new cool things, whether it's a bike share, a car share, whether it's a scooter share, the autonomous vehicles you see outside, on-demand transit, even paratransit. Once you step foot out of that vehicle, or even if you're using a bike or a scooter, it is not safe, none of that works, right? And Pere, I think you and I, we've been talking a lot about your focus and Interlight's focus to making cities safer and more accessible through smart infrastructure, right? So.
Yeah, one of the things that we are doing, we are analyzing the environment through AI vision sensors, and then we provide a platform where you can have access to all this information in real time, but also to extract some patterns of use of behavior of the pedestrians, drivers, bike users, and so. So this, let's say it's a platform, but it's an agnostic platform where it can be integrated to any city authority software as a service, or can be integrated to a digital twin to create new city designs or infrastructure design in order to detect what I was saying before at the beginning. To be aligned with the Vision Zero plan, because at the end the goal is to prevent any potential accident, but as well to ensure the accessibility to these people that has special abilities.
Yeah, it's phenomenal, right? Start thinking about how do you bring the physical environment with the technology, making sure it is safe and its information can come across. We are at CoMotion Miami, right? So you all have been doing great projects throughout the world. If we were to apply, that technology, that solution, that policy that you've been able to bring from around the world, what is one thing that you feel that can be brought to a city like Miami or another city and improve the experience for people out there? I'm going to open it up.
Okay.
So see who jumps first. Who has that superpower today?
Well, I think that at the beginning, to create that improvements to the city, it's so important that the companies collaborate each other, and we are already doing with Navilens, CISE, DOM, and probably Carlos is taking so many notes about how he can implement this technology and these work groups in order to implement that, because at the end, the different companies, they have a single technology, but they are complementary. So at the end, it's to create an ecosystem of technology that works perfectly together, and it can be easily integrated without being a fragmented technology that you have many software as a service, and you get lost with all that data, information, notifications. So it's so important to create that kind of ecosystem and work groups.
Phenomenal. Carlos?
Yeah, in addition to what Pere said, what has worked well in Spain was the creation of consortia, where they have enough authority to align the different actors that are operating in the city, both public, private ones, and so on. These transport authorities that coordinate policies, infrastructure, and operations have to listen to operators, because they are managing the day-by-day business, and they know what is happening, and having authorities that give the space to do the job is critical. Obviously, keeping the rules of the game permanently alive. We know that challenges for Miami could be quite different from Madrid or Barcelona or some big cities in Spain. But the core ingredients are there, are always the same. Governance, operational models, excellence, and analytical capabilities, obviously adapted to the real conditions of every single city.
Romari, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to link it what Carlos said related to digitalization. If I could bring something from, I will talk about Madrid because it's where I live and what I know best. I think it could be a comprehensive low emissions zone model, but not just as a traffic restriction, rather as an urban mobility management system. So what we're seeing in Spain is that these low emission zones are evolving a lot from simple access control systems towards comprehensive, fully connected ecosystems. So in CICE, we build open big data platforms that what we do is we have proven it in Madrid, and it's called CIDER Analytics, and it integrates data from many third parties, so data from environmental sensors, data from public transport agencies like EMT, so thank you, Carlos, for providing us with the necessary data there. Data from even from the police to track accidents in the city, data from traffic management systems, and all this is being used by the city of Madrid to make better decisions, more informed decisions, and all in all, to design mobility policies and to check whether those policies that are being implemented are correctly, if they are working or not. So I think that would be interesting also to maybe to bring to Miami.
Yeah. And that's phenomenal, right? And I think, we often think the zero emission zones are just about the environment and air quality, but there is so many other benefits to it, right? Not only, you start bringing bicycles and people walking and more safer infrastructure, and even emergency response can actually go faster to some of these areas. There's a lot of benefits I could start thinking. Eric, we start going back to the same comment you mentioned about data governance, right? Because I think one of the things that is very challenging is how do we bring standardization in how data gets shared, right? If every single technology solutions, right, it does things in a silo, who's winning there, right? And ultimately, what's the scalability for the company, but also what's the opportunity for the cities to better manage that? Is there anything that you think that has done well, whether it's Europe or somewhere else that can be applied here in the United States?
Yeah, I think what I was saying about data governance is very important to take into account, because at the end there are a lot of stakeholders in the game. No, we have the operators, the city, the government, the end users. So it's important to define what the end users, the passengers need, and how we can add value with the quality data. So I think to have a model with policies and standards and to define the goals and the objectives of the city and the transportation models, it's important. And I have seen that in a lot of cities in Europe and Spain. So I think this could be also implemented here in the US and specifically in Miami, for example. So
yeah. That's phenomenal. I'm gonna open it up for questions in a little bit. I'm hoping to see some people engaging here a little bit more. But this is, and I think you mentioned end user, right? And I think that's critical to understand. But at the same time, we talked about operations, right? So that's another end user. And keeping in mind that maintaining operations efficient is ultimately a benefit to the agency and to the end users out there. Before I jump into more of this conversation, we're talking about zero-emission vehicles, right? And Carlos, I know you have talked about electrification, right? And you talked about how you align the physical grid and the infrastructure and how now the new systems can integrate data into providing better decision-making.
Yeah, it's very important to note and to understand that fleet electrification is not just about replacing a diesel or a gas vehicle into an electric one. An electric bus comes with IoT, connected infrastructure, and is generating a lot of data. in that moment, IT and OT, the traditional OT that was absolutely separated from the transportation and planning, converge rapidly. Probably is the sector where most rapidly these two worlds are converging. No? And this activates this virtuous circle for the public mobility, involving, first of all, infrastructures, other operators, and finally, why not, rapidly the customer. But the effect of bringing electric fleet will be okay just if we manage it as a whole part of the system, not in an isolated way. This process even start to create culture and new habits in the city by, if the public company is bringing electric fleet, why not I can use electric fleet by myself in my day by day. So these new habits are starting to be perceived in the city as good habits regarding mobility.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. Have you all been to Madrid, Spain? Yes, yes. I'm a big fan, right? I'm a big fan, Carlos. You'll know this. There's a little place, not a little, it's a very big neighborhood. It's called Barrio de las Letras. I'm in love with that place, and they have these tiny little buses that are electric going through it, which is phenomenal. And a moment of privilege here, and I know Elia, former assistant director of the Department of Transportation and Public Works here, plan for the construction of what is now the nation's largest fully electric bus rapid transit in Miami-Dade County. 22 miles of a corridor dedicated towards buses, fully electric, 100 buses that are going to be required. And is really providing great service. You heard the mayor this morning about that component. And what we realize is it is a challenge. It is a challenge to not only build and create a system that can operate with electric buses, how to charge them, where to turn around, where to manage the grid in an area that doesn't have the same density as other places. So before I open it up to some folks in here, someone has a question they want to jump in. I see a lot of eager hands. Not yet. We'll get there. We'll get there. I know it's lunch coming up. But one of the things that as an innovation officer I always think about is there's a lot of future things we can do. There's a lot of new technologies out there, right? And a lot of new ideas, and often solutions looking for a problem. And I think that's what you mentioned, Laura, right? Solutions looking for a problem. So how can we help cities managing the transformation during the uncertainty of the risk, right? There's new things that have promised to be great solutions, have not there yet. And if you can share, how then some of the cities have been able to manage that risk in the future-proofing elements. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a process, right? I think right now everyone talks about AI and data platforms and how to implement them, but the most important thing is to get in mind that the needs of the end user, as I was explaining before. So the final objective of what we are implementing is important. So I think it's a process where we have to experiment, and I'm happy that we are all open to new technologies and to implement new solutions and to test them, but and of course we have to do some experimentation and testing first, but there's to get sometimes we want to get the big mistake is we want to get accurate predicting models from the beginning from scratch, and it's a process, so you have to start with some experimentation, and then maybe to get to a phase of support analysis where you have these tools as a support agent to help you to make decisions, to get to final automated maybe decisions. So it's a process.
It's a process.
And it's important to test and to experiment.
Thank you, Eric, and I totally agree with what he was mentioning about having the user first. I feel like in a lot of cities, the biggest risk is not listening to what the population needs. And at the same time, I feel like in Miami in particular, and this is kind of going back to your question before about what can Miami do and copy from other cities. I think it's a city that has a lot of fear to innovating with other solutions, and they want to make sure that they have all the data and that there is zero risk. And I believe that there's always going to be a risk when you're working with innovation. And there is always examples, like Carlos, for example, in Madrid, they implemented Navilens, which is our solution in the full network. And it was a bet that they had to do because there was a demand from the population. And nowadays, we've seen that without doing any active marketing and publicity efforts, there's more than 280,000 scans a month
Wow,
of
impressive.
the Navilens technology.
Yeah.
So I think that there has to be a willingness to support the community and bid for innovation and accessibility as a project. So that would be my take.
I would say that going with the Eric intervention, integration, it's the only way to make that studios. You know, you have to see the environment, you have to see the data, because at the end it's the only one that it's going to show you what are the real problems that are happening around. If you don't put sensors around, you are going to be blind and you are going to stay making decisions based on intuition, which basically you are going to fail in many decisions. So it's kind of risk management in that way as well. So you have to take decisions based on data. And at the end, as he was saying, experimenting new solutions, but with that backup of risk management. It's the only way to do it properly and keep evolving that way.
Yeah. Carlos?
Just, from an operator point of view, the key risks are normally the speed and cost and certainty. Speed, we can see technology moves fast, very rapidly, but it's not the case of the infrastructure. The decisions for infrastructure must be long-term decisions, and if you have cost uncertainties, it's quite difficult to manage them. And at the end of the day, we have to combine the day-by-day business with the future of the evolution. It's quite difficult to keep the track of the two things at the same time. And if you are transferring risk to the operators in that terms, the shift never will be produced.
Yeah. No, that's one point, right? And one of the things that I experienced in the past is that it's a fear of failure, right? You know, and I think that happens a lot in government, which is a fear of failure, and that's why they put all these requirements. This is my theory, so hold with me on this one. My theory is that it's because we take way too long to deliver on something, that by the time that we're done on delivering on that, it better be perfect, right? So I think a good way to start addressing this risk is just do things faster, right? We don't have to be perfect from the beginning. Let's try to launch things faster. Let's innovate together, right, and start pushing towards that. I'm confident that, you know, when it's got to be like a linear graph that says if you deliver fast, your tolerance for failure is a lot higher because you can continue to iterate on top of that, right? And that's some of the things that innovation can bring forward, right? And innovation is not necessarily technology, right? It's how we approach things, and whether it's something new or it's a combination of all things done differently, it can be pushed forward towards greater experience. Now, I wanted to start closing this by we talk about infrastructure, data, we talk about technologies and innovation and policies. You know, if you were to use one word to kind of define all this mobility space for smart cities and intelligent transportation services in 2030, right, bringing all these ingredients towards making something of value, what would you use? That's a good one, Laura. It's a good one.
I would say integration. Yeah, because I think we are no longer focusing on just delivering infrastructure projects as isolated assets. Rather, we need to see it as a fully connected ecosystem. So roads, traffic, metros, light rail, buses, everything needs to be orchestrated as a unique network. And I think that the closest we get to this point, the more efficient our cities will be. And yeah, that's what I would choose.
Perry, we'll give you a minute to think about another word because
I was into saying AI agentic, but in the way of the meaning that Laura was explaining. You know, this you need to make processes faster as well, to take faster decisions, because if not, you are in the risk that when you are implementing a solution, it can be outdated so fast because the process takes so long. But with that kind of process, you can also show the cities that they have to also create the regulations faster and change it faster as well, because the technology evolves faster than the regulations. And then sometimes you find that limitations. So I think, well, yeah, this will be...
Martin, one word? Oh, you can explain your word after your word, but yes.
Okay. Yeah, I would say legible.
Legible, yes.
Making sure that the infrastructure and that layer of information is available to make sure that all the work that the rest of the companies are doing on the physical infrastructure is useful.
All right. Carlos, I see you eager, but Eric, Carlos, go.
I would say going beyond to integration, I would say interoperability.
Interoperability,
that
yes.
Is not just integrate different systems, but making them truly work together.
Excellent. Eric, this is a challenge one because you're the last one, right?
No, I agree. Integration and interoperability is the key, but maybe I would say data-driven, because at the end, we have talked about, we have now the technologies to identify patterns and to connect patterns to get value from data.
Yeah, as an educated risk-taking. Just to let you know, I was looking for the word paella, right? So that's how you bring all these ingredients together for something of great value. There's no one else than the folks in Spain that can bring that together. But
next discussion will be in Barrio de las Letras, having a paella.
Seguro, yeah, vamos para allá. All right. I'm excited about this conversation. I know there's going to be a lot more opportunities for us to talk with this talented team in here. But if you can, please join me in giving a round of applause to these folks in here. Thank you. Good? That was awesome. Thank you very much. Yeah. Could we take a picture with everyone? Yeah. Me porté bien, Javier, ¿no? No, okay, thank you. Are we good?
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes, you're good. Thank you so much, Carlos, and the Spanish delegation. For those who RSVP'd, there will be a Spanish lunch, and that will start at 12:15. And then once we come back from that lunch, topics such as AI-powered mobility, blue highways, and regulation without roadblocks will be discussed. Thank you.